Facebook and see how we do. We should be live on Facebook. Yeah, are we? Looks right. And we should be live on... Sorry, that was YouTube. Now we're live on Facebook. I believe every day's a good day when you paint. I believe. So let's get into it here. I'm gonna share my I'm gonna share this up, and I think we might be able to do this 15 seconds in. Let's try it. Share to group portrait painters. Hello neighbors. Let's do this. Excellent. Next step is just to check in and just make a note for anyone watching, anyone who was around yesterday. We are going to be focusing primarily, if not entirely, on our pal Daniel today. So you're going to see me doing a lot of work on this trusty puppet pal, and we're going to start with the head. And so basically I think what we're going to do is just really get to the same level of finish that we got with Fred on Daniel's head. We may have to take a quick break for a phone call, but otherwise I think we're going to just plow through until 12 noon. And so let's get started. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is get our focus going here. Like I said, we're going to be really zoomed in on Daniel today, but like as always, we're not painting zoomed in, we're painting zoomed out. Hold on, I'll be right back. Just got to check the... Okay. The time lapse is running. We zoom out, and because it relates to my oil painting practice in the studio, because if you take a look, hang on a sec, let's make sure we're all ready to go. Okay, so if you take a look, when you get back to this distance, you can really compare 2 to 2, 1 to 1. Boom, boom. Left, right. You got the photo on the right. We got the painting on the left. And if you paint from this distance rather than zooming all the way in, and if you get some distance from both the painting and the subject, you're gonna have a much brushier, broader focus. And the other bonus of this is if you paint it with your eyes far away from both, the result looks great from farther back. So that stuff we'll explain later when we're actually in the studio, because I keep saying we're going to do that, and we are. First, let's find like a general shadow. So look, if you pick the darkest dark color here, it's going to be super dark. But this whole area isn't just that dark color. It's kind of a mixture. And so to that end, you want to maybe find a lighter value that you can put in there temporarily. So anyway, I'm just trying to get a foothold in the beginning here and put in shadows. Nice deep shadow here. I'm going to regret not having more detail on my underdrawing, but you know, it's time to put the big kid pants on, and you know, Fred's not always going to be there to hold your hand, so we're going to do what we can. Squint, always squinting if you can remember. And really, it's okay if we just plow ahead with simple brushwork. Whoops. We're going to get our eye. I don't mind it being a dark there because, so. All right. Probably should be darker than that, but that's fine. And that's okay. You know, just plopping in our darks here, okay? Dark is definitely going to overpower. So we got a guy here with a giant red nose. You can't avoid that. So let's find a nice dark red. Darkish. I don't know why I put that color down, more for fun than anything else. Wow. That's gonna leave a mark. Where are we now? We'll see. We will see. Okay. Let's find our shadows up in the ear on the right. Same kind of deal as with any object that you're painting. You're looking for the basic shadow shapes. And you can squint to find out more efficiently where those shapes are, like this. All right, here's our edge. There's our edge. We're gonna grab our, luckily we, you know, don't need too much. But you can see in this layer, I don't think what we want to do is obsess over, I mean, yes, Daniel's a huge part of this, but if we get hyper realist on Daniel and not, you know, we kind of want the focus to be on Fred. So let's see if we can pull that off. I don't know. We're definitely not working with like as robust of a underdrawing here, but that's okay. Again, at some point, you're on your own, you know? Let's hit some highlights. I don't know exactly where they are, but hopefully we can find out. Oop, that's a big Little half tone here, lives here. We're really going to try to loosen up. I'm actively vacillating between, oh, let's paint by numbers, and like, look, just, I'll be the first to admit it's hard. You know, there's all these textures in the ears. Like, I will try to avoid painting textures with this many patterns. Uh-oh, my Duolingo is popping off, telling me I got to get back on there. I'm going to lose my status. Well, sorry, folks. I'm going to lose my painting status if I don't. This is more important, right? Daniel. So it's interesting. Because there's not a lot of shadow pattern in Daniel, on Daniel's head, we're going to end up sort of mixing. We're going to end up having to make oh, this is crazy stuff. Look at how green this is. Daniel. All right, this is not what I'm used to, but that's all right. We gotta suffer through it, right? Lots of Mr. Rogers songs apply here, like, you've got to do it, every little thing. You got to do it, and when you're through, you can say you did it, 'cause you did it. Gotta get some Rogers episodes playing in the background. It's such a good feeling. That's going to stop me from singing about this. So again, if you're finding a color for the background, you did it. You did it. I mean, this is, you know, what are you going to do? If you don't get the whiskers right, then nothing's right. Let's see where this little guy. Do it, and when you're through. All right, we're really blocking in stuff here. So we're keeping a broad focus, trying, pretending to keep a broad focus. Look, you know what I mean by that? Like, it's so easy when you look into a shape like this to just see all the little conical, matted fur, you know, the conical shapes, these triangular shapes. And yes, we do need to put some triangular shapes in here. That's why, you know, I was extra safe and I marked a couple. But once you put those in, you kind of have to let go and squint and find out what can you place that generally fits the texture without going into a kind of unthinking, unfeeling almost. You don't want to become too unfeeling when you're finding. I know I don't like to talk about painting in terms of feeling because it is a craft, but you almost have to. For me, it's a craft. I'm not expressing myself particularly when I do this. I'm organizing myself and organizing my thinking to get myself at a place where I'm able to focus. And that's different from, I think, expressive painting when you're like painting. I don't know. I'm not an abstract painter, but I know that there are ways to access like your emotions when you're painting. And for me, like I'm trying to almost, like feel through the struggle of painting because it is hard. But how does that turn out? What is that like when I'm actually painting? Often it has to do more with feeling the way the shapes look in nature. By nature, I mean the photograph. The shapes in nature versus the shapes in my painting. And my eye is on the photo or the model and mostly. And then I flick over to see if the brushstroke I put down generally does it kind of fall in the same zone of interest as the painting. So like it's like a flip book. I've said this one before too. It's like if you've ever seen one of those animated flip books. In fact, I think I have one. I'll bring it out. But in the old days before cartoons or whatever, they had little books where you could flip the pages quickly and end up seeing movement. You would see like, oh, the three little pigs running around or the wolf knocking at the door. And you could flip through a flip book. And so I think you've probably seen those before. And when I flip my eye back and forth, if I'm doing it right, I'm flicking my eye back and forth fast enough that I can see. Oh, I just need to take a quick break here. Good to know that on the time lapse, there's a bit of a gap here, but that's okay. We also, that's interesting what happens here when I, huh? All right, well, I don't know what's going on, guys. Had to take that call. Hope it's all going okay. All right. So, all right, my head's in the clouds. Let's get it back. This is what painting's about, right? You're not, you got to keep your wits about you. And I think maybe this, speaking of expressive painting, maybe that's some of what expressive painting is all about, is kind of riding the emotions and letting it all kind of come out in paint. But for me, what I like to do is kind of mirror, we're looking at these very beautiful little patterns in nature, like the way this little ruffle appears over his eyebrow. It's almost like an eyebrow, right? And if we look carefully at those patterns and don't just say, it looks like a zigzag. You know, if you keep, you almost have to enter a state with your mind where you're feeling the shapes. And I know that's weird. It's like you have to be the conduit between what the shapes look like in the photo and what they look like in you have to be the conduit. You have to be the transcriber, basically. But it's not about mimicking precisely. It's not like a direct copy. It's more of a, it's more like you're trying to almost create an echo of what's happening in nature. And as my painting teacher used to describe it, I'm sure he still does, it's like you want to make the painting even more lyrical in some ways than nature itself. I know that's impossible to do because nature is like endlessly lyrical and there's all these, but it's like the job of the artist is to translate these things that are happening in nature and do so in a way that almost adds life and And so in this case, I don't know if I'm doing that. Again, I've talked on this podcast ad nauseum about how I don't really love my brushwork, but that's part of why I'm doing this, is to improve my brushwork, so that things are more lyrical and are more sort of expressive and sort of rhythmical. So again, it's this balance between making it look right, making it look like what you're painting, and making it sort of dance and be something that's a little more interesting in some ways. Because not that nature isn't interesting, but I think what happens when we get so desensitized to seeing nature in our daily lives, we're just sort of like, okay, you know. And then when a painter translates these little natural rhythms in a way that's fun and surprising, it kind of makes you think, oh, that's what that looks like, you know. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And I don't want to sound too, I don't know, philosophical or something. I'm just trying to describe to you what I think is happening. Certainly when like the great painters paint, Velázquez, Van Dyck, Sargent, many more contemporary painters who, you know, the list is endless, but I'm thinking more about traditional painters, not traditional, classical painters, realists. All right. All right. So again, we're seeing patterns, rhythms. We're not going to get so involved in these rhythms. I also am much more versed in painting flesh tones, flesh colors, than I am little puppet fur or animals of any kind, real or imagined. Let's make sure our time lapse is going. Yes, it is. And then we had this. There's our highlight. There's your highlight. Okay. I'm sort of accessing the zone but thinking about other things. So you'll see what I'm getting at here. I'm just patching in. Whoa. That was a loud. We're patching in tones there. So I think the next subject on the docket here, it's really hard to say. I'm going to be at this for a little longer than I'll probably spend the week doing this, because today I think I can do 2 sessions at this today. And then tomorrow I can do 1 session, and then the following day I can do 2. So in the end, I'll probably have 6 sessions. And that's usually enough to keep things rolling. Get things going for our time lapse, which, by the way, I will say this: if you're interested, I've started posting the progress time lapse. So I have yesterday's up on Instagram, YouTube. I don't have access to stories yet on Twitch. So, but Facebook, let's see, do we have it? No, I don't think I put a Facebook, but go check out Instagram if you want. So try to, check out that time lapse. The basic idea is, I just got to the point where I was thinking, look, yes, it's great to have the full time lapse done, but I want something to post every day that will get people excited about what's coming up or what, so we'll see if that works. It's just something I'm trying. There's some value. I like the idea of suddenly dropping like the final time lapse. But in these early days, I just want to be pushing more stuff out there and say, look, I'm here. So, okay. With all of this jabbering having been done, now I'm starting to get curious. What's going on with my posts? I think we actually had some good we had some good stuff going on. But here we go. We are back at it. So there's a lot to be done here. Look at this. This is kind of interesting. There's some reflected light off of Daniel's eye and into the fur. Into the fur. There's a nice highlight here. In a way, with fur, I don't know if you're able to see this kind of difference the way it's much easier done than said. But with fur, I'm finding we don't see as much shadow. Like, look, there's a whole halftone along the cheek here, and we really need to zoom, kind of, how do we find it? Because it's like white and then dark, and white and then dark. It's light and dark very quickly, like these staccato points of light. And how do we, short of going in and flicking each little nuance, there's got to be a better way. And I think the better way is find a basic tone like this and almost treat it like it's a soft transition that turns around, and then later go in with some little accents. I don't know. That's going to be my working plan right now. But we'll see. It could go sideways. Okay, so, same idea everywhere. I mean, this is going to be the day. This is going to be all day. We're just finding little shadow patterns within Daniel's fur. Oh, that's interesting. Now, okay, so I'm also kind of building up. I have some, what I think are quite interesting questions about streaming. Can I stream this, but then also stream on another platform, another display, without having two computers? Like, this is what I'm going to need to figure out, because I want to stream two displays to two different platforms at once. If there are any streaming experts, OBS people out there watching, please chime in, because I'm getting ambitious. I'm going to be doing some things and wanting to stream multiple displays at once without showing them, like, to different platforms. Ooh, that's where it gets wild. And speaking of chat, please also, here, look, let's match this, see? I'm going to squint until that ring basically hits the same. So, I'm getting spaced out because I'm thinking about painting, but I also want to finish what I was saying. For chat, about chat, we still have not yet had a live viewer from YouTube chat with us on the live stream here. I wonder sometimes if we've even had a live viewer, period. We maybe have, but for a variety of reasons, it appears that Facebook, YouTube are not the most, we're not really getting a lot of play on these live streams there, but it's not like it's a big deal. I mean, I am thrilled to have like the conversations that we have here on Twitch, and it almost might take away if we had another platform chatting us up, but so get in here with the my phone is blowing up today. There we go, Daniel. So this is the kind of zoom we want. If you could see this. We don't have to be so rigid. We can let things flow a bit more, but do so in a way that's strategic. We're not just saying, oh, there's the hand. We know where the hand is. And we need to you can't just make things up, but at the same time, you want it to feel improvised. So the simpler you can make those brush marks, the better. Okay. We had a great comment the other day, yesterday, from YouTube after the stream. I was very pleased about, saying that this person was just doing a deep dive into Rogers and found the video. They were doing a YouTube deep dive. And there aren't many Rogers videos on YouTube. I mean, there's a few famous ones that probably we've all seen, which are like him testifying. And anyway, there's a lot. But they're not thousands and millions. I don't think he's barely got, he's still on PBS Kids. You can still watch the old shows, which is great. And he has a website that releases weekly or bi-monthly new episodes. Uh-oh, we got a sad friend outside. Maybe they need to look at Rogers, watch some Mr. Rogers. All right, so we're going to find a slash mark. we're going to find another dark. See, we don't have to be you see what I did there? We're trying not to be so exacting. Like, I don't know which side this thing goes on, but it could go somewhere like that. And then this sort of turn, can kind of keep it rigid and then blur in this softness. And we're going to start seeing things take shape. For instance, this is definitely a highlight. It lives under his chin, not by the hair of my chinny chin. We're going to zoom in here because I like this. Like that little passage. The way this unfolds and unfurls, you can see there are these little veins of shadow that live among the highlights here. And if you can see them, the trick is to be able to see them but not kind of fixate on where the rivers are. Where the rivers of shadow that carve through. So something like that. Mm-hmm. We can also probably plug in our ear, dark. I left a little value here, that's fine, we can put that there if you'd like to. And then, speaking of tiger, Daniel Tiger, sounds like a cat. I hope that's a cat. Never. It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. Whoops. See, you gotta look, you gotta keep your eyes on the painting and the photo. There we go. We're going to start seeing really the likeness come out when these eyes are in play. As Christopher Walken once said, the eyes are the window to your face, or on your face, something like that. The eyes are the windows of your face. That's why he put googly eyes on all the plants in his garden. No, if you know what I mean. If you know the sketch I'm talking about. He always knew it would be the ferns. So, there we go. Here's a nice edge here. Again, yeah, it's patchy in here. Patchy patch. And pretty wild thing I'm noticing is sometimes that sounds like a baby, but sometimes it sounds like a cat. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's Daniel Tiger. Okay. So there, we're basically pasting in detail. Did you ever awaken to the sound? So, now we're going to take our shadow edge. Another patch. Rogers. All right, sometimes it's kind of fun to see this. Remember when I was saying, if you were watching yesterday, I was talking a little bit about the brush marks and the kind of brush marks that we use for different faces. So with Rogers or with Daniel Tiger, there's a bit of a sense that you almost can make the brush work. I don't know how to explain it, but like there's a fuzziness. Obviously there's a fuzziness, right, to this texture. But how do you get that? And I think you get it by basically being very like staccato with your brush marks. Like here, I see a little arrow that kind of pops in here, and you just hit it and then move on. You don't try to do like one long, lovely brush stroke the way you would do going down the side of Roger's cheek or anything. It's just sort of like a patchiness. There's got to be a patchy quality to the fur texture. And like here, there's a dark. Grab it in here. Oh, yeah. So, and when you paint, as I've complained about many times on this stream, digital paint doesn't act the way you think it might. It's you gotta, when you're painting white into dark digitally, you come up against a lot of hurdles. And unfortunately, that's usually how I paint. And who was it? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the screen name, but Norse Wurg gave me a little bit of an idea yesterday, which was to use layers in a way that I hadn't thought of using before. Pretending like today, what we did yesterday is dry. And so more on that to be continued. We're going to do that. But today I'm sticking to my tried and true methods. So here, look. There's an ear. Find our outline the way we have previously. Okay, what I see is drawn, making me feel nervous a bit, is this nose. The nose, all this stuff. Let's get this, blotching it in. There's a little eyebrow. It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing So here, see this? I don't know if you can see this, but the way I'm going to put these brush strokes down, weird. I just had a kind of slight, as things come into focus on my painting, it becomes strange to now look back at the photograph and back and forth, because you're seeing that patchy business. I don't know. It's weird. It looks the same, but it looks different. Now, find out what this is. Thundercats are on the move. Thundercats are loose. Bit-it. The artwork in Thundercats is much better than I'd remembered it. They found a way to like simplify the way He-Man never quite got around to doing. He-Man was always, they were trying to be good at anatomy, but you can't keep that up for episode after episode. But in Thundercats, they kind of simplified the drawing in a way that was, I think, successful. All right, so Thundercats are on the move. Meow, meow, meow. Lady Aberlin. I think my understanding of these characters was flawed as a child. Like, first of all, I was never a make-believe guy. Like, I don't think I was really that into the neighborhood of make-believe. I liked the nonfiction elements. I liked when Fred would go to, a factory. Well, I liked picture. I liked the factory visits, all that stuff. But I wouldn't say that I was that thrilled about neighborhood of make-believe to begin with. I kind of like put up with it, waiting for more nonfiction Rogers World. But I don't think I ever, like, Daniel Tiger is one thing, right? But the Henrietta Pussycat, I think is her name. I guess I got those sort of confused. Like, I don't know. I don't think I was paying close enough attention during Make Believe. I mean, obviously we knew Lady Aberlin, and I'll tell you who scared the bejeepers out of me was the red-nosed lady. And I don't think I'm alone there. She was a dangerous neighbor. But funny that another like fun fact about Rogers, that I kind of learned this from the documentary, but if you've seen it, sorry to regurgitate this, but the idea was if he were gossiping about people at the breakfast table with his family, he would put on the voice of Lady Lane Fairchild. Or if he were being stern with his children, he would put on, or like if he were being imperious and like, you know, he would put on the voice of King Friday the 13th. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Like he managed his own emotions by sort of being aware and busting out some of these puppet voices. It's a good approach. Okay. We've got a lot of work to do on Roger's face. We can't do it now because I'm trying to focus on one thing at a time a little bit more. Like, okay, you know, we've got the head of Daniel to work on. There's a lot going on here with this Daniel anatomy. I don't always know what's what here. Whoa. You know, you can hit this shadow. Thundercats are on the loose. I don't know what this was. Again, when you start trying to get too laser focused, you run into problems. All right. Here's a highlight that lives under the neck. A little highlight under the chin. Same value, really, as the background color. Thunder, 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 thunder. Thunder, 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 catch. We'll grab some of these darks and just drag those there. All right, so what's going on under this eye here? Something like this. That'll carve that out. All right, how are we doing? This is kind of that brushwork patchy thing that I think a lot of the kids are into these days. I like it to be a little more realistic, but we'll see. So far, we seem to be getting good feedback on this Rogers portrait over on the TikTok. Let me see, am I right? We're at a standstill, but we did have a nice we had a nice like to view ratio on that one. That was really the first time we've seen that. It almost tells me, like, if you're not, you got to be painting people who are operating on like a kind of Ronald McDonald, Michael Jackson level, fame quotient. Which I would say in the United States, Rogers has that. Certainly, I'm getting so old though now. Like most kids probably, most users are probably like, "Who's that?" And certainly in Europe, or where Mr. Rogers didn't have a foothold. So, but you know what? It's not about the views. In fact, pretty soon I'm going to be introducing our newest. Well, I'm not going to spoil it. Let's just say this. I think the next one's going to be fun, and it's going to be in keeping with the PBS, Legends of Public Broadcasting. But it's going to also bring in our friends who are in the sci-fi. So there's my only clue. If you can guess who's next, you'll get a front row I don't know. We don't have a lot of resources to hand out right now, but you'll be very much appreciated. You already are. By just your being you. You know how. By just your being you. It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. So here we go. There's a bit of the hair that's lapping through here. There we go. There's that patchy stuff that we like to see. Across the Great Divide here, where we can see there's too much something. What is it? We can do what's called glazing. So we'll talk about that. I'm not going to get into that right now, but I think for this one I'm going to start trying to employ a bit more of my layering approach, because pretty good, right? Looking good, I think. Meowmers. Here's another thought as I'm going along here. We're halfway through, and we only really are going to be able to get to his head. I don't know why I did that. I started plugging in values for the body, and that's okay. But DT. Daniel Tiger. Who knew? Who knew Daniel Tiger would provide such a suitable muse? I did not. But so again, squinting down, I keep saying this and then I'm not doing it. I'm like looking at like minor details here, but if we squint down and plug in these sorts of brush marks, squint again, see how this kind of flows up and in. It's such a happy feeling. And here's something I'll do here. You can't, it's hard to hit darks after you hit lights, but we'll talk about that more another time, I guess. All right, so what's happening here, I see. It's kind of our basic shadow value. The same value as the background, really. Yep, pull a little light across, just a little hint of that. Oh. Okie doke. Who's next here? Let's put in, let's really find this kind of turning value. Something like that, right? That's probably going to be decent. Sort of we're putting stand-ins now, really. That's kind of like, because we don't have the kind of patience to do every little hair on this puppet's head the way we like, we're not going to do every little hair on this puppet's head. What we're going to do is put in basic guide marks, and then try to be accurate when we make little staccato. Like, see this? I'm already being too specific, but you just want to kind of drag tones and make sure that you're getting the basic flow of these shapes, and you're not beating yourself up if you don't have everything perfect. But you do have to, it does require a lot of flicking your eye back and forth. So here's a highlight. Look at this river of highlight. So here, the highlight begins here. It kind of trickles through here. And then let's see if we can follow the thread with trickles. See? I'm doing every little hair, but it's not right. It's not where they it's not where the it's not where they really go. It's just an approximation of where they go. And then we're going to be going back over it again and again, so find our light. All right, zooming out. Okay, meow, 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 meow. Lady Aberlin. We're going to get this basic blue, dark blue value, place that in here. Okay, because we've got nothing to lose over here. So then, we can really take a broader approach. Once we're set free from the idea that every hair needs to be perfect, once we let ourselves off that hook, then we have to decide, well, at what distance? So if I'm zoomed out like this, I know for you guys, I might be even zoomed out too far for you to see what I'm doing. But it's really helpful for me to be this far back almost the whole time, because I can sort of see things. Having a bird's eye view enables me to not get lost so much in the weeds. That makes sense. And if you're watching on like a phone, I don't know, you may want to tip that into portrait mode or landscape mode. All right, so I'm zooming out. There's a lot of dark here that needs to come in. Unfortunately, now I'm going to hold myself to it here and make us proud here, right? Do us proud. Okay. Here's a river of highlight I call everything highlights, right? This lives down here. And we can abut this light shape along it, the edge of it. There is a dark shape here that cuts through. There is a light shape here that cuts down and around. We're gonna find out how that fits in. But you start to see I'm essentially doing what I didn't do with hold on, please. Just want to make sure I know what this is. Hello? Typically, if a person is calling you and you say hello, there's kind of an immediate response. But if it's a robocaller, my theory is that they have some software that kicks in when they hear like, we got a live one, and then they like frantically try to get somebody on the line. I don't know how it works, but it just feels strange. It doesn't feel right. Okay. So, a lot happening here. I said I was gonna zoom out and not be so detailed, but it's a dance, you know. It's like you don't know what you have to work on until you're working on it, and then sometimes it's really just a guideline that I'm talking about. Okay. I think we've got a basic likeness for Daniel. Let's pop in this crimson sweater color. Let's find out something like that. We got to get Daniel's mustache going here. There's a blur. Okay, let's get his arm. Let's note well how the basic rule tends to be that light into dark. Oh God, my tablet like keeps falling off the edge of the desk. Light into dark tends to work better. I'm sorry, dark into light tends to be more effective, I would say. So we'll find our dark and paint dark into light. Before we do that, we might as well use the information we have. We got some good data there. Oh, data. There's another hint. There's another hint for the next portrait. I think. I could change my mind, but whoops. So see this? You can really you can carve back into the lights. Carving back. Carving it back. Okay. Cutie patootie. We gotta all right, so we can blast in some lights here, and we'll have to there he is. There's our pal. Okay. So head and shoulders with a couple of marks down in the body. It's going to be good. It's going to be okay. What's confusing to me at this point gosh, there's so many fun things to learn on the internet, aren't there? I say that because I keep getting distracted by my phone. One thing I'm pretty into these days is the pennant race in baseball, or at least the wild card race. So the overall view here is somewhat shaggy, and that's okay, but I don't think we want Roger's face to be shaggy. So you kind of have to keep the whole piece going in a uniform way. So like, if you're gonna keep things super brushy on Rogers, then Daniel needs to be even brushier. So how am I going to get my Daniel finish up to scratch without having my Fred finish up to scratch? I don't know if that makes sense, but your eye is always comparing one against the other, meaning how the focus, it's called the hierarchy of focus. What is the most in focus thing in this painting? What is the most in focus thing in the photograph? What is it possible that everything in the photograph is in focus? And then it's up to me to decide what should be in focus. And yes, that's possible. When you're painting from life, you don't have a focus. You're looking at a model, and that model is either in focus or not. Anyway. I'm sorry. No, I said that model is it. I was thinking about something else when I said that. Rewind, scratch that. What I meant to say was nothing's in focus when you have a live sitter. So it's up to you to decide what is in focus and what is not. And that's a big responsibility, because if you make everything in focus, then you've got hyperrealism. Nothing wrong with hyperrealism, but I want a more painterly result. I want it to look like a painting, not a photo. I mean, you're never going to get away from it looking like a photo if you're painting from a photo, because it's almost impossible to. You can do it, but it's just going to turn into like more like illustration and Norman Rockwell-y type stuff. When you're painting from life, you can tell. At least I can tell. I don't know if you guys agree, but if it's done from life, it's easy to, for me, it's easy to determine whether it's done from life or from a photo. And I think part of what I like to do is create the illusion that it's done from life as best I can. So kind of break the boundaries of the photo. In other words, try to make the photo look more natural or less photographic than it might otherwise. So here I am, probably ready for a break, but we're not going to do it. Oh, God. I don't know. I like this. I like how it's going. I don't hate anything in particular. But we do need to go back in from time to time and determine what our farthest behind, and then find our lights, put our little highlights back in. And sometimes we'll just get too obsessed and fall off track, and that's understandable. But we need to know we're doing that, and we need to rein it back in from time to time. Here's a good example. We can find our lightest light here, mark it, hit it. See that? There's even a hair that kind of wisps that way. Not exactly sure where, but we are doing our best, and then we're pulling hair back into the ear here. So look, that's pretty nice. Like, that feels like it feels like Daniel. It's hard work. It's hard work, but we move on. Let's find out what's happening in the outer world for a moment. Okay, coming up on the 2-hour mark. Feeling good about that. This is kind of interesting. There's a very clear highlight along the edge here. And this is where you get into whether or not you want this to look like a photo or not. A photograph is the only thing that's going to make this do this, where the edge is lighter than the where there's that sort of dithered edge. See that? I don't know. I'm not going to get too into that because it's the tiniest little infinitesimal thing, but along this edge here, you got to blur that edge into the background. And how do you do it? That's always the question. Is it soft? Is it sharp? Where is it soft? Where is it sharp? So now it turns the head, turns things suitably. Okay. squinting, we can see that there's this whole patch of light that really needs to be addressed. Find out where and why and how. This one like this. And then we have a nice patch here. All right, zooming out, we're gonna, I don't know. I mean, I like this. I think we're doing okay. We certainly could do a bit more. We could glaze some shadows on top of the little shadow on the neck. But, yeah, there's a lot of detail work to go with Daniel, for sure. But things are like picking up. In other words, we're going to need to do a second pass on both Daniel and Rogers. Second pass meaning at least another examination of what's going on with these guys and how, fill in these gray areas. Literally. Sometimes it's, sometimes I'm scared of you, and all I really want is to hold you right. He's got little puppet hands. He's a funny guy with puppet hands. Down. Little puppet hands. Why did I go that high up? Or am I too low? I don't know. Okay. Fuzzy hands. Fuzzy hands. I don't know what this is, but let's put it in there like that. Sometimes I forget where I am, and that's probably a good thing. But I kind of get lost in thought, and that's what, when I think about painting, I don't want to do it. I'll tell you why, because I'm like, ooh, it's going to be so hard. But really what I think it is a fear of having to get into your zone and start listening to yourself think a little bit. And that's where streaming painting is actually really helpful, because it's a distraction from all that stuff that's going in your head. I'm keeping my right brain busy, possibly at the expense of the painting, but doesn't really matter, because when I need to pay attention, I'm going to, and paying attention sometimes means getting lost and falling into that kind of zone where you're not really aware, you don't really know you're here anymore. So anyway, I don't know whether we'll do a whole episode about that. Here is a dark that lives under, threads through. Now what else do we have? Daniel. Here, let's plug in some of these. Whoops, where? Plug in a couple of these. Okay. Something like that to break up that edge. That edge was staring at me funny. This edge was also staring at me funny. kind of things that there's some things you let slide and some things you don't. And I think that's the artistic choice that so many people talk about, like really happy accidents. Like if I forget to paint that section, or if I forget to realize some section, it's because my eye wasn't disturbed by its presence or lack thereof to make adjustments to it. So it's like, it's kind of it's the errors that we make which tend to be our, like, I think music is a good analogy here, where you have, like, jazz players will say, for instance, they'll make a mistake and it won't, it's like the little mistakes they make when they're in the heat of the moment are often the things that give that make it come alive, but we're so used to, I think, also as a culture, seeing perfection in music and art, and everything's boiled down to these 8-second perfect moments. I think we tend to devalue somewhat the spontaneous, and I do it myself. Just think it's something to keep in mind. All right, there's Daniel. Pretty nice. I think we can get ourselves meowmered by the time this session is over. That would be nice. Meowmers, meowmers. Look at that. The CPU is getting overloaded because we're getting so much work done. Okay. There's so much to do. And I think that's actually the Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. I don't know about you guys, but the Daniel Tiger of yesteryear is almost irreconcilable. Is that the right word? Maybe. with the new Daniel Tiger. I love the new Daniel Tiger show. I watched it. I learned some of the music on guitar. But there's very little, if any, resemblance between Daniel Tiger of yesteryear and Daniel Tiger today. Just a little happy thought for you, or maybe not so happy if you like the old one. But now we're really got to flick your eye back and forth to see these differences, because they're gonna creep up on you. And look, like I already lost this sinking value here. But that's good. We're making changes, right? We are going to find essentially where these changes need to go. See this? This edge is blurred, but how blurred and why? Do we need to do it? If so, like take a look. Is it distracting if it's not blurred? Do I even have the right height for where that dark shape is? Is the dark shape itself too dark or too low? Is there a little mark that cuts through it? Does it even need to be there at all? These are the questions that you need to be asking. And which sometimes end up really plaguing us as painters, because it's a fight. It's kind of a battle. I remember I mentioned this guy before, but there's a purveyor of fine art materials who clearly has some knowledge of how to paint in Brooklyn, and he describes painting as like a war. And if it's not, if it's not a fight, you're not doing it right. It's back and forth. So, I don't know. We also got to try to have fun with it. But okie doke. There we go. So we zoom out and we start to see that texture comes together a bit more. What's going on with the eye? Do I have enough data under here? I'm gonna fix that up another time. But somehow having Daniel I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said about leaving him brushy in this way. But we're not really going to know that until we get the background zapped in here. So we're not going to zap in the background yet, we can work within here and clean up edges and all this stuff. But once we get the background and you're really going to see, is Daniel too scraggly? Like, does it compete with Rogers? Stuff like that. Those questions will all be answered, but you have to kind of suspend disbelief and accept that it's gonna, you just kind of have to use your imagination a little bit and just focus on the areas you're focused on. Okay, there's his watch. Let's find out where that is. As you know, oh my God. Sorry. His watch is like a big deal because he lives in the clock, right? Knock on Clock. Once we watched a great episode, which we affectionately called the Fortune Cookie one, where McFeely delivers a bunch of fortune cookies. And then, of course, oh God. Then, of course, Rogers continues the theme in Make Believe. And they open a fortune cookie, and a fortune cookie guy jumps out of the fortune cookie, and they're showing, like, I think toward the end, Rogers didn't really like to use a lot of technology in his show. But toward the end, I don't think you could really compete if you weren't using visual effects. So I think he did it in a tasteful way. He had this guy kind of pop out of the fortune cookie, and anyway, it's a good one. I think you can watch that one on PBS Kids. All right. As we continue through, we're going to try to find our edges. Definitely a lot going on here. I know that. And we can sprinkle in highlights to our heart's content, but eventually we're going to have to paint them. So for now, we're sprinkly dinkly do. And seeing if they start to take shape in the way we want. Okay. Again. So another example, I keep getting distracted and derailed, but it's okay. See this? We're going to carve the eye up and away as needs to be done. And then we need to get a dark in here too. Look at this. It's not going to work because, as we've said countless times, dark in the light doesn't work out so well, but at least we have a dark there. And then we can hit our light. Actually, which is it? Which is worse, light into dark or dark into light? I don't know. But it's not, neither of them is good in digital. I want like a clean. I want a clean impasto. And to do that, I think I'm going to need to use more layers. And I want to thank my pal Norseworg for the idea there. Something like that. Cute, looking good. We almost want to leave it painterly, but not too painterly. I don't know. What do you guys think? Should we tighten it up a little bit more? I think one thing you want to do is leave your options open. So by that I mean kind of make it one broad level of finish. Oops. Whoopsie. Get it to one broad level of finish. There. So here I am, like, talking about something that's going to be more challenging than I give myself credit for. Okay. There we are going to, what was I even talking about? I started realizing how, it doesn't really matter. Like, if you over finish this, then what you'll have to do is either terp it back or erase what you've done, or bring everything else up to the same level of finish and then decide. If, you can, basically what I'm saying is leave your options open by keeping the finish broad, keeping the focus broad enough. So here we see, I'm actually starting to catch up to Rogers with Daniel. And I don't know if I want to do that. I don't want to overtake Rogers' level of polish, so to speak. With that said, you can certainly continue to fill in dark areas that are, I don't know, like there's no reason to have this. There are highlights in here, right? But there's no reason to have the grays there. The gray of the canvas can be eradicated. Now, as we're coming up to our 3-hour mark, we have about a half an hour to go. So I think I'm going to use my time to explore and really to this is the area that I'd like to finish. I mean, hands are so important, aren't they? Like, hands say so much about the personality. Very cute how nobody really gives Rogers, nobody realizes, I think, that Rogers is doing so many of these darn voices in that program, like King Friday, Lady Lane Fairchild, Daniel Tiger, Henrietta Pussycat, Cornelius especially. It goes on and on. But he really is a great puppeteer. And I think those puppets that don't even move their mouths and they're able to drive home that personality and connection, the warmth. I mean, one of the things you'll see is, if you look back in the archives, you'll see some really beautiful, touching interaction between Daniel Tiger and Lady Aberlin, for example. You know, people, human characters on the program. Okay, so here we go. We're going to find our lights. Whoops. Oh, yeah, I'm using the wrong brush there. Huh? Da, 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 da. I've certainly got Bob Ross theme song in my head. Gosh, you know, it'd be great to get into the studio, because my posture it's not doing my posture any favors to be doing this every day. Start turning into one of those, like, you're like a crow if you're not careful. Your neck goes forward, shoulders and all that. But I don't know if I would give up entirely on working from home, because there's a lot that's good about it. So, all right, there's our, I mean, you can see how these textures start to take shape. It's, I don't know, I like it. I like this whole, so we can find our we got a dark that kind of travels across. Whoa! No thanks. I got a little slap happy there. And what I sort of call these rivers of dark. We know that one lives basically there. And then there's like here. What's all this? I don't know. That's going to be a tricky passage for sure. We're going to attempt. Here, see this? That's our Don't know. Like a little Patagonia vest or something. Oh, Cinnabon boy, Bob Ross has transformed. We've got the final time lapse up. And I think I'm going to start putting up daily time lapses because I'm too impatient to share the progress. So there's a Rogers one up from yesterday. Thanks for stopping in. We got Fred the inspiration for many children and adults. And let's see where we can take it. Basically what I'm trying to do in these last 30 minutes or so is get Daniel Tiger's kind of lower body here. If not finished, not even close. What I meant to say was get it at least canvas covered to the same degree as Fred. So we kind of want our finish to be that. So but yeah, thanks for sticking with Bob's horrific transformation. He at least got a shave out of the deal. What I think I'm going to do is get I think I'm not flagging like I was that last time when I had that sick day. Oh, that was awful. But I didn't get quite the best start today because I had to take care of like some kind of relatively urgent phone calls and I knew that I had to do something else after this stream, so I had to have something prepared. So I didn't get to have my like morning routine the way I normally would. So I'm a bit, yes. And then you just got to sort of grab the reins and try to bring it back. And this stuff's fun, but if you're not connected totally, you can end up making sloppy mistakes that you then need to take care of later. So there we go. We're going to get that second hand in. I think I'm going to start. This is sort of sad to say, but with the eye toward getting these things like cranking. Like I'm getting a little faster at painting, I've noticed, but I'm also allowing the medium itself. In other words, like because I know I'm doing these for the time lapse mostly. I mean, no, uh, sorry. The way, like the time lapse being an important part of this, I'm changing the way I paint. Let's put it that way. It's not like I'm painting exactly the way I would if there was no time lapse. I'm now doing things like just painting Daniel, and it's yielding some really good things as far as my technique and learning, which is what it's all about. But so as I kind of, but what I worry a little bit about is that I'm going to just start becoming like that everything's just going to be about the final time lapse, and like, you don't have to paint it because you don't have to paint this, or this, because nobody really sees that in the time lapse or something like that. I don't know. It's just that the medium somehow takes over to some degree what it is. It sort of guides the art, and that's true of art through the ages. But now you can do anything you want, and it's up to you to sort of drive things the way you want it to look and not compromise. Like, I'm not going to put something up that I don't think looks cool, but I think I'm somewhat in danger of like an example was I wanted that Bob Ross time lapse done. I was like getting sick of him. I was kind of in a funk over the weekend. I was like, let's not kid ourselves. I want that dopamine hit of the time lapse up on the socials, because then, oh wow, I got 500 people looked at this, and I don't want that to end up compromising like the product. I don't think it will, but it's just something that I have to struggle against, because yesterday I posted the Mr. Rogers time lapse after just one day, and that was a little risky because first of all, it clutters up your timeline, and second of all, I might learn that people like it when it's half finished and there's gray stuff popping through. And I like it too. I like the look of that. But, it just raises interesting questions like, do you even have to finish these things? Do I like how Roger's face looks when it's got like gray, crackly stuff showing through? I don't know. But it certainly looks more, you can tell it's a painting more so than when I had Keith Morrison and I took it to the level of like, I took it way too far in some ways. So anyway, we just keep putting it out and see if it evolves, but I'm still the one who's kind of got to decide what it looks like in the end. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I do see, like, look at this. See how this hair, the Daniel hair kind of, I don't know, it's like gets choppy here. There's a lot happening there that we're not going to be able to address today, but it's just something that definitely that river of dark isn't reading like Daniel's arm or hand. So here, what do? We squint down all the way down, watch for how things work. At this distance, squint. Here, like right over here, we can bridge this divide so that, yes, there's a river of dark, but how does it really look? Is it connected more? A little bit. Where's the rest of this thing? Ah, here, I'm not even paying attention. Here, there's a whole, when you squint, you find the most amazing things. If you squint, you'll see this needed to fall down here more. Okay. Squinting, squinting. I'm not going to take care of all of that. But so I'm drawing a blank here. Here. What's what? So I don't know. Gulp, I say, as I get overconfident. Sometimes you just gotta let it go and try for it. So there's a nice example where we can find the balance of light and dark. See to it that so much to do, so much to see. The musicians or the songwriters for the Daniel Tiger, contemporary Daniel Tiger series are quite brilliant. I mean, they've clearly got jazz backgrounds. They're nice production value on a lot of those songs. And they certainly get stuck in your head. I don't know if they're quite up to the par of Rodgers' original compositions, but sometimes they're like pretty good covers. They're like they'll take one of his songs and play with a little bit, update the lyrics, things like that. All right, squinting. What's happening here? Yikes. Getting more texts today than somebody who's getting a lot of texts. Be mine, could you be mine? Won't you be mine? All right, here's going to be some fun stuff. We'll put a slash of dark down here. Oh my, sorry guys. I took it too far. My tablet slipped off the damn desk. I have it like situated off the edge of the desk. Sorry. Put in this nice dark value. Find out how it is as it keeps blurring across. But that's nice, you know, we'll see that puppet form take shape. And we also can, let's find our boundary here. Here we go. We're getting at least done with our daily mission here. That we'll have to fix later because that's a really nice passage there. So where are we at now? We are coming up on the 10-minute mark. We're going to, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do for the next 10 minutes. I don't know yet, but that wasn't the right choice, but it's all right. There we go. Show something like this. It's Daniel Tiger's neighborhood, a land of make-believe. Won't you ride along? I'll never forget when my son was like 2, maybe 1.5, something like that. When around the time when he started paying attention to flashing lights on the screen. We watched Daniel Tiger, and in the opening sequence, Miss Elena, who is the daughter of Lady Lane Fairchild, is doing like cartwheels across the front, like in the introductory song. She's doing like head over foot cartwheels like this, and she's just like sort of a two-dimensional, almost like a South Park style art. And my son was like determined to get into that cartwheel zone, and it was just like he admired that so much that she could flip around like that. You'd see his head trying to like, he was just trying to turn his body in the same way that she was. But he, you know, I think he thought if he just shook his head and back and forth that he would get the same kind of like visual, that dizzy feeling is what he was going for. Very amusing. He's a happy guy, for the most part. All right, let's see here. Dark. Patch this in. Yeah, see these connections that need to be made. You can see how it we're gonna get layers going. This will be fun. We'll have like an impasto day, which means thick paint on top of dry paint, and that'll be fun. Okay, dark. We're going to drag this, because look, this is where you start to see these, like, I don't know what they are exactly, how to describe them, but this is where you can start to find ways of indicating how the patterns, you can make it look like fur even though it's not, even though I'm not going to go in there and get every little wisp. It's your duty is to kind of fake it. So here's an example. That edge is bright, but not that bright. Something like that. We've gotten in some bad habits of only grabbing colors from the photo. There's no real reason to do that other than sort of psychological fear. In fact, it would be better if I used the ones in the painting. So I don't know. It's like, might be something to do with the way I paint naturally with oil paint. So let's see. Okay, let's break this up. Something like that. This doesn't need to be this dark. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna chop that up. All that stuff we can kind of leave for next time as we come down to a finish here. I encourage anyone who's interested to check out the Instagram, and give a follow, because I'll be back. If not this afternoon, whenever I say if not, it means that I might not, but I don't want to say no. It's like a curse. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. But I do have something that I have to do at 1 o'clock that will preclude me from starting directly at 1 o'clock, but I could start at like 2 and go till 5. So, without further ado, let's spend the last moment here hitting dark darks. Whoop, what's that? Okay, great. All right, we're clear. It's 12 noon. We're ready to go. I've got my something or other going, and we're going to wind down. So thank you for joining. No matter where you are, you always make each day such a special day. You know how, don't you? By just your being you. And we will call it a session. See you maybe this afternoon, and take good care. Bye-bye.